What if events went differently? Imagine a Jurassic Park unlike anything you have ever seen before. A park where the deadliest hunter isn't a dinosaur, but an alien creature born for the thrill of the hunt. In this alternate universe, the Predator, a master of stealth and precision, arrives, drawn by the ultimate test of skill, the mighty ancient dinosaurs that ruled the island. Here, it's survival of the fittest. Welcome back, my fellow watchers of the multiverse, to another what if scenario, where we're going to be diving deep into what if the Predator was in Jurassic Park. It's going to be an interesting what if scenario where the Predator moves through the jungle with calculated silence, watching, waiting, studying the fierce T-Rex, even the velociraptors, and every creature in between. So that being said, I do want to say, before we dive into this brand new video, let me know what you think of the brand new MissedThePart logo as well as the MissedThePart banner. It's also based on the Watcher from Marvel's What If, and I'm kind of doing my own thing now that we're diving into so many different series, different franchises. I thought I really wanted to do something that was more diverse, and I thought this would be very cool. So I want to give a massive shout out to John Art Palco for making the brand new 2025 MissedThePart logo. But that being said, my fellow watchers, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn those notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. Grab some popcorn, do whatever you have to do, and let's dive into the brand new episode. What should have been a trip filled with wonder and awe has now become a bloody nightmare. The dinosaurs in Jurassic Park have gone rogue, and Alan Grant, along with the other human visitors, are now desperate to escape this place of horror. But the dinosaurs are probably the least of their problems, as a lone Yautja warrior is watching them from the shadows, waiting to strike. Location: Isla Nublar, Jurassic Park, Triceratops habitat. Just a moment ago, the sun was shining bright, and the sky was a beautiful blue. But now, dark clouds were beginning to engulf the gray sky, and thunder roared in the distance, a sign of an incoming storm. It would be bothersome, but such an event will not stop Savage while he was on the hunt. This warrior, who was a member of an alien race known as the Yautja, has been on a few hunts before, mostly in the jungles of South America. At first, Savage had found worthy prey, and he even earned the title of the demon who makes trophies of men. The Yautja made quite the reputation in Guatemala, but after a while, boredom overtook him. The citizens of Guatemala have become too predictable, making it much easier to take them down with each encounter. So, when Savage learned of the beasts that roamed in Isla Nublar, he jumped at the chance to hunt them down. These beasts, dinosaurs they were called, were once an extinct species, and humans only learned of them through the discovery of bones and ancient fossils. But now, it seems that human technology has become so advanced that they have literally brought dinosaurs back to life. An incredible feat, Savage had to admit. No wonder his race respected humanity so much. Hidden within the trees, Savage looked upon the small group below him. The humans surrounded a large creature, a Triceratops who seemed to be in a sickly state. The dinosaur was lying on its side, mouth agape as it took slow, labored breaths. Its bloodshot eyes mostly remained upon Dr. Ellie Sattler, blonde-haired woman by its side, whose hands gently rubbed across the Triceratops' scales in an effort to comfort it. Another human, a male with short brown hair named Dr. Alan Grant, was by the woman's side, his eyes wide in awe as he too petted the Triceratops. They were both amazed to be here with a living, breathing dinosaur. This was completely different from examining a dinosaur skeleton or seeing one in a school textbook. This was truly a lifetime experience. Turning away from the two humans, Savage seemed to lock eyes with another person, who was standing away from the Triceratops. This man had short curly black hair, and a pair of shades rested on the top of his head, making his dark brown visible to the world. And those same eyes appeared to be staring back at Savage. But that was not possible, right? After all, the Yautja was using its cloaking device to make himself invisible, and the trees helped to hide his form as well. But then, Alan approached the black-haired man and grabbed his shoulder. The brown-haired man then asked if his comrade, who he addressed as Ian, was all right, and Dr. Ian Malcolm responded by saying he was fine. But he could have sworn he saw something in the trees. Savage froze, thinking the human had spotted him, but he was relieved when the black-haired man said that it must have been his imagination, and Savage was beginning to think he was getting sloppy. Location: Jurassic Park, Tyrannosaurus Rex habitat. Time: 8:49 p.m. Finally, Savage thought as the heavy rain fell upon his armored body, raindrops streaming down the warrior's mask, and his brownish reptilian skin now glistening under the moonlight. But despite being out in the storm, the Yautja warrior felt it was worth it when the king of all dinosaurs decided to make an appearance. Savage watched as the large beast Botaz devoured a smaller animal, a goat, and it then stared down at one of the vehicles outside of its prison. There were 2 jeeps in total which the humans were using to roam around the park, and in the first vehicle was an older man, Donald Gennaro, along with 2 children, a boy and a girl who were called Tim and Lex respectively. Suddenly, the driver's side door opened and Gennaro scrambled out of the jeep, terrified. It was obvious he was afraid of the T-Rex, but Savage could not help but feel disdain towards the man. How dare he run away like that? It was a pathetic display, but as the scared man entered the small hut nearby, Savage noticed how the electric fence that was keeping the T-Rex within its containment was beginning to fall apart. One by one, the wires holding the fence loosened, and eventually the entire structure collapsed onto the ground. With nothing to hold it back anymore, the Tyrannosaurus Rex stepped out of its cage and stood between the 2 cars. It then let out a tremendous roar, which Savage took as the beast's way of expressing its joy about finally being free from its prison. But this was not a joyous occasion for the humans. The only thing they could do now was stay within their vehicles and pray that the dinosaur does not notice them. A light suddenly turned on inside the first jeep, the beam jerking in all directions, as if it was wielded by an unsteady hand. That was true since it was Lex who had accidentally switched on a large flashlight that had been placed in the back of the car. Tim begged for his sister to turn off the light, but she struggled to figure out how exactly to do that. The girl was so scared that she could not think properly. Seeing the light, the Tyrannosaurus followed it and slowly proceeded towards the jeep where the kids were. For a moment, the dinosaur simply stared into the vehicle, curious about the boy and girl sitting inside. The children rushed to the back seat of the jeep and again attempted to switch off the flashlight, and they unintentionally aimed the beam of light through the sunroof, which was made of glass so the T-Rex could easily see it. The kids realized their mistake too late. The T-Rex then came down upon the 2 children, its snout breaking the glass panel on the top of the jeep. Fortunately, the glass did not break, and the kids were able to use it as a shield as the Tyrannosaurus aimed to swallow them whole, its mouth opening and snapping close repeatedly. Savage looked on. His grip on the tree branch he was holding tightened until it eventually snapped under the pressure, The branch fell to the ground, and it was fortunate that the rain covered the noise. The Yautja warrior's eyes narrowed on the Tyrannosaurus, and with a flick of his wrist, Savage called forth his wrist blades, which were long and jagged in appearance. As he moved to jump down from the tree, Savage stopped when he saw one of the older men, Alan, exit the jeep with something in his hand, a red stick that soon ignited, and the blaze immediately caught the attention of the T-Rex. The dinosaur spun around to face the brown-haired man, who waved the flare he was holding in front of the T-Rex. Savage noted how the beast's gaze was fixed on the light, and its head moved from left to right to follow the flare. Once he was sure the dinosaur's attention was fully on the flare, Alan threw the light source back in the direction of the T-Rex's former prison, and the dinosaur instantly stomped after it. A clever move, Savage thought. The man managed to lead the dinosaur away, and no one was hurt in the process. The Yautja's wrist blades retreated back into his gauntlet, and he leaned back against the trunk of the tree. He would chase after the T-Rex at another time, when the humans were not around. They would only get in his way. But just as he was about to relax, Savage heard another car door open, and out came the black-haired man with the shades. Ian also carried a flare and was about to light it in order to distract the T-Rex, which was already fleeing from the scene. What was the man thinking? In one swift movement, Savage pulled out one of his shuriken, a weapon with 6 curved blades, attached to a disc-like center, and he tossed it towards Ian. The projectile sliced into the man's hand, not enough to seriously injure the human, but enough to make him drop the flare in his hand. Ian hissed and held his wounded hand, examining the shallow cut on the back of it. It was not anything life-threatening, so the man dismissed the injury for the moment. What really concerned the human was what had struck him. To his right, the black-haired man saw a strange object with multiple blades, and one of them was planted into the ground, making the weapon stand upright. In Ian's mind, he questioned what the object was, and, more importantly, who had thrown it. He turned to look into the mass of vegetation on the other side of the road, but he could not see anything out of the ordinary. With it being so dark and the heavy rain, it really was no surprise that the man could not spot the predator lurking in the trees. Location: Jurassic Park, outside utility shed. A man wearing a beige safari hat carefully made his way through the jungle until he finally spotted his target, who was hidden within the large bushes ahead of him. The shrubbery rustled as something quickly made its way towards Robert Muldoon, the park's warden, and he quietly loaded his rifle while keeping his eyes forward. Once the gun was loaded, Muldoon aimed his weapon at the bushes and patiently waited for the right moment to fire. But that moment never came, as a hiss from his left drew the man's attention to a velociraptor standing mere inches from his position. Its yellow eyes narrowed on the human, and its snout was partly open, revealing 2 rows of small, sharp teeth. Knowing there was no way to escape this predicament, Muldoon could not help but smirk the words "clever girl," leaving his lips in a whisper. He had to admit it. The raptors had successfully trapped him, and there was nothing he could do. Just as he thought that, the velociraptor opened its mouth and was preparing to devour the human before it. It did not get the chance, however, when something pierced through the raptor's skull. Robert turned away as blood splattered from the raptor's head onto his face. But when he looked back, the man saw the dinosaur on the ground, its eyes wide open and lifeless. Of course, Muldoon questioned what exactly had happened, but as if to answer his question, another velociraptor appeared and charged in his direction. But it was not lunging at the human. The raptor collided with something beside Robert, which he was unable to see. The velociraptor, however, caught the smell of something strange where its alpha once stood. Something was there. Something that was invisible to the naked eye. The velociraptor's fall was cushioned by whatever it had crashed into, and soon it was revealed to be something that was not a dinosaur. But it surely was not human either. The cloaking device the warrior used to render himself invisible was damaged by the raptor when it rushed into him and bit down on his arm. The gauntlet protected his limb, but it was impaired due to the sudden attack. The invisible cloak started to fail, and slowly, Savage's form became evident to the world. The Yautja used his arm with the damaged gauntlet to hold the raptor back, who was trying to bite at the warrior again, but this time the beast aimed for Savage's face. But like the raptor's comrade before it, Savage used his wrist blades and shoved them through the raptor's snout. It did not take long for the dinosaur to fall onto its side, dead. As Savage freed his blades from the velociraptor's body, he noticed more of the creatures emerging from the bushes surrounding him. 4 raptors now circled Savage, and the Yautja warrior held his wrist blades up, ready to strike the moment any of his foes came close. Suddenly, a gunshot rang throughout the area, and one of the velociraptors collapsed onto the ground, and blood pooled from its head into the dirt. A bullet had penetrated through the raptor's right eye to the other side of its head. Confused, Savage looked up and was surprised to see the man with the hat perched within a tree. A small trail of smoke flowed from the muzzle of his shotgun, and Savage quickly pieced together that Robert was responsible for the death of the raptor next to him. Angered by his friend's death, another velociraptor let out an ear-piercing screech and rushed towards the tree the human was in. Taking out a shuriken, Savage was about to throw it at the charging raptor, and believing that the Yautja was distracted, another of the dinosaurs tried to jump at him from behind. But he was already aware of the raptor's incoming attack, and Savage swiftly stepped out of the way and sliced through the creature's side with a shuriken. The raptor rolled across the dirt, and its back hit a tree nearby. It then cried out in pain as the deep gash in its side started bleeding. Meanwhile, Muldoon fired another shot at the velociraptor that was sprinting to the tree he was settled in. But the dinosaur was too fast, and it was able to avoid the bullet. When it was close enough, the raptor dug its claws into the tree trunk and began a slow ascent up to the human. Robert internally cursed himself, but he moved to load his weapon again, and hopefully before the raptor reached his position. The remaining velociraptor on the ground growled at Savage as the two circled one another. Without warning, it snapped at Savage, who quickly jerked his head to the side to dodge the raptor. It attempted to bite the Yautja warrior multiple times until it finally decided to use its talons and slashed at Savage's chest. The raptor did manage to cut through the mesh shirt its opponent wore under his armor. It was at that moment the Yautja decided to get serious. When the raptor tried to cut him again, Savage flipped over the creature and grabbed onto its long tail. He then hurled the velociraptor into one of the trees, and a large crack was created within the trunk due to the impact. As it struggled to get up from the ground, the fissure in the tree grew, and eventually the tree was torn in half, with the upper part falling down onto the raptor below. Its body was instantly crushed, and its mangled corpse was all that was left of the dinosaur. With that out of the way, Savage looked back to the human and saw that another velociraptor was climbing the tree the man was currently perched in. It was nearing Robert's location, but luckily, he was prepared to fire again. The raptor suddenly jumped up from its position on the trunk with its mouth wide open, ready to sink its teeth into the man. But that was its biggest mistake. Quickly, Muldoon aimed his shotgun at the velociraptor and pulled the trigger. The bullet went right into the raptor's mouth and pierced through the back of its throat. The creature was dead before its body even hit the ground. It landed right at Savage's feet, and he spared only a glance at the dinosaur before looking to the man again, who was relieved to finally be able to come down from the tree. It took some time, but Robert was out of the tree and back on solid ground. He let out a breath and mumbled something to himself before quickly regaining his composure. The human then faced Savage and thanked the Yautja for his help. If not for Savage, Muldoon would have been dead by now. Savage said nothing as he turned around and started to walk away from the man, but Robert shouted for the Yautja to wait, which caused Savage to stop in his tracks. Stepping closer to the warrior, Robert asked who, or rather, what was Savage? Was he some kind of alien? Or maybe he was just a guy cosplaying as an alien? The man needed answers. Glancing over his shoulder, Savage contemplated on whether he should explain everything to the human, but the man did help him take care of the velociraptors, even though Savage was completely capable of handling them himself. Maybe if they met again, the Yautja would be more willing to talk. Right now, however, Savage had a mission to complete. Location: Jurassic Park, Visitor Center. Time: 2:06 p.m. Savage had finally made it to the visitor center, where he was sure his target was waiting. He had climbed onto the building and was now looking through the glass dome that overlooked the entrance hall. A Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton was on display in the middle of the room, and white tarp was hanging around the areas where the building was still in construction. But the skeleton was not the only T-Rex in the hall. Standing beside the T-Rex display was a real, breathing Tyrannosaurus Rex, the one that had escaped confinement the night before. Savage has been waiting for the moment he would encounter the T-Rex again, and there were no distractions this time, thankfully. Or so the Yautja thought. A second later, a group of humans found themselves in the hall, and Savage watched as they all froze in fear of the beast before them. The adults were quick to put themselves between the dinosaur and the children, with Muldoon at the very front. He aimed his shotgun at the T-Rex and yelled for the others to leave immediately. He was a man of honor, Savage thought, and he held a deep respect for the human, who would willingly put his life on the line for the sake of others. But this was Savage's prey, and he intended to take care of it himself. So, with a few good punches, the Yautja broke through the glass, and he fell through into the entrance hall. He landed on the back of the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and the beast roared as it tried to throw the Yautja warrior off it. But Savage's grip on the T-Rex was strong, and for extra support, he planted his wrist blades into the dinosaur's side. This resulted in another roar from the T-Rex, much louder and higher in pitch this time. While he was struggling to keep himself on the dinosaur, Savage failed to notice that the Tyrannosaurus was charging at the T-Rex display. The dinosaur then threw itself into the skeleton, and the structure immediately fell apart. Savage was forced to let go of the T-Rex, and he flew across the room, along with the head of the Tyrannosaurus skeleton. But the Yautja warrior immediately stood from the floor, unfazed by the fall. As he did so, the humans looked upon Savage with wide eyes. The boy, Tim, had a huge smile on his face, and he commented about how cool the Yautja looked. Ignoring the compliment, Savage climbed onto one of the wires that had been used to hold the T-Rex skeleton upright, and he swung around the Tyrannosaurus just as it moved to bite at him. The Yautja warrior then grabbed onto the railing of the floor above where the humans stood, and he aimed the small gun mounted on his left shoulder, which was called a plasma caster, and fired a bolt of charged plasma at the Tyrannosaurus Rex. The plasma hit the left side of the dinosaur's face, and it was forced back into a nearby wall. While the T-Rex was down, Savage looked to the group of humans below, and then, which came to a surprise to the humans, the Yautja spoke 2 simple words: "Go, now." Savage spoke, but not with his own voice. He was using the mimicry device in his helmet, and he was imitating Muldoon's voice. While he knew some human languages, Savage could not speak them fluently, and his voice may make it harder for the humans to understand him. So that is why he chose to mimic a human's voice instead. And it was evident that the humans understood, because Robert wasted no time in leading his comrades out of the building to safety. Good. Now there were no distractions. Looking to his plasma caster, Savage turned the settings of the weapon, so the blast would be much more powerful than before. Just as he did so, the Tyrannosaurus was back on his feet, and it again charged at Savage with its snout wide open. Instead of the flesh of its prey, the T-Rex tasted the cold metal of the railing the Yautja warrior was hanging onto. The dinosaur growled when it noticed that Savage was now on the floor, and his plasma caster was again aimed at the beast. Hoping to reach its target before he could fire his weapon, the T-Rex sprinted at Savage with incredible speed. But just when the beast closed in on the Yautja, Savage blasted his plasma caster and a huge plasma bolt shot from the weapon. The plasma collided with the Tyrannosaurus, and for a moment, Savage's vision was engulfed in white light. But when it cleared, he was not surprised to see parts of the T-Rex's body falling onto the floor in a mass of flesh and blood. The only part of the beast that remained whole was its head, and Savage planned to keep it as a trophy. And that is going to be it for What If the Predator Was in Jurassic Park? Let me know what you think of this fan fiction video, and let me know what other crossovers or what other what if scenarios you would like to see next. I do really appreciate all of the support that you guys have been showing me, and it just really means a lot, and I can't thank you enough. Like, we've gained so many more Patreon supporters, a brand new plethora of YouTube members. Things have been going crazy, and I can't thank you enough. Like, it really does mean a lot to me, and it really means a lot to me that you guys are supporting these brand new ideas, these brand new fan fictions. I think it keeps the channel running. It keeps the channel just making tons of new videos for the catalog. Like, I think it's just awesome, and I can't wait to continue to pull and just give you whatever you guys want to see. Like, there's so many endless requests. Like, the multiverse is truly endless here at the MissedThePart channel. There's so many what ifs that we can do, and I'm very excited that we're going to be exploring these different universes, such as Alien vs. Predator. We're kind of diving into Jurassic Park now. Like, what else would you like to see? But that being said, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn those notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content, as the support really helps the channel even further. That being said, take care and have a wonderful day. Peace out.